the word festival is perfect, right? And it is a festival of epic proportions. So this is our second year here.
Yeah.
And what's sort of become a tradition is to get on like our number one guy, you know. Remember that? You're probably too young. In the original Batman, Jack Palance said to Jack Nicholson, "You are my number one guy." And then he burned him, right? Well, Marcus Hayes said that, you know, the other day that I wasn't his number one guy, or he just wanted to rip on me too. It was Rip on Pete Day. But he's our next guest. He's the Kathy Ireland expert. He knows all the Sports Illustrated swimsuit models personally. Marcus, you're on with Pete and Ryan again. How are you, buddy?
You know, you can be my number one guy, and I can want to rip on you. Those two things can both be true.
That's true. Being ripped on by Marcus, especially in the back of a press box, is of the highest honor. You and my college roommate, John Finger. Did you know that John Finger and I went to Temple together and even roomed together at one point in time?
I'm not sure you went to college, Pete.
Yeah, it's questionable. We need to see those transcripts.
What are you saying, that the late, great Al Schreier just gave me a Xerox copy of a diploma?
I'm not sure Al gave it to you. You can run a Xerox. You're a clever guy.
Mm-hmm.
People were always asking what was in Al's briefcase. It was emergency diplomas to hand out to his journalism guys that might not quite get through there on their own. Well, how you doing, Marcus? We're thrilled to have you on again.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it, guys.
Yeah, man. So the Phillies here, Marcus, they come back from the break. I think we all needed a break. It was like, you know, we basically told our girlfriend, who are the Phillies in this situation, like we need some time apart, and we go back out on a date, and it's safe. The break didn't help. So it's,
I got to say, I don't know about that. I mean, the break seemed to quiet the bats. I mean, they were mashing the ball when they took the break. Even in their losses, they were hitting the ball. Then they got shut out. So I'm not sure the break was good for anybody.
All right. Well, my analogy's ruined. What I'm trying to get at here is
that's great.
Anyway, over to Pete. No, what I'm trying to get at here is more of the same frustration. You know, I'm not saying that the first game back is important, but it does add a little bit more frustration. And the starting pitching continues to be a focus for fans and anyone that's following the team. And I want your thoughts on that area, particularly for the Philadelphia Phillies.
Well,
Vetta gives them 5 innings. You know,
Yeah.
how do you assess last night and just the group in general?
Well, I mean, one of the things that I think kind of has been overlooked in the last 24 hours is that their all-star didn't play in the first game back. You know, JT Realmuto is the best catcher in the game, and, you know, the starting pitcher struggled a little bit, and they didn't hit. So, you know, if it's been Bryce Harper not back on paternity leave for one day, it would have been a big deal. But JT Realmuto wasn't there. You can argue he's their best all-around player, and he didn't play in the first game back. And they got shut out, and they had some pitching issues. So that's number one. Number two, I mean, going into the season, my contention was this isn't a playoff team until at least 2 of the 4 starters in the back end, including Eichhoff, who started in the minors, until they prove that they are 500 pitchers or better. You know, you can't have two front end starting pitchers and nothing in the back end. And only Eflin has proven to be really serviceable at the major league level consistently so far this year. And I wrote a column about a month ago saying that this was always a developmental year for this team because they didn't go out and get Dallas Keuchel. They didn't go out and spend even stupider money and commit to even a longer-term deal for a guy who, for the Atlanta Braves, isn't pitching particularly well now. So for me, this was always kind of a let's see what we have in the back end of our rotation and see how we can address that and see if we have anything to develop in the minor league. I'm not nearly as disappointed with this team as most people are. I thought that 80 wins might have become 85 or 88, and at the max 90 if Harper had, if Harper returned to like 2015, 2017 form. So you had Bryce Harper coming off a down year. You had a starting pitching staff that was, questionable for at least 60% of it, if not 75% of it. And, you had a lot of other question marks in the lineup. Who is Michael Franco? Who is Cesar Hernandez? Who is Odubel Herrera? So to me, this team, if this team is better than 500 at the end of the season, and if it's 7-8 games better than 500, that's a market improvement. And that's enough for me, considering they didn't address the starting pitching. And honestly, who could have predicted that they would have 8 relievers go to the injured list, one of them twice, the twice being Pat Neshek, who is back there, and it looks like he's never coming off. You can't spend that kind of money in your bullpen and not have the veterans pitch, not have Tommy Hunter pitch, not have Neshek pitch. You just can't, and that's who they've been. So it's not like they didn't address their roster or address their pitching. The people that they acquired and the veterans that they expected to produce have been injured, and the starting pitching has been a disappointment.
Marcus Hayes joining us here on 97.3 ESPN, columnist, Inquirer, and Daily News. Follow him on Twitter at InkStainedWretch. So, Marcus, Pete posed this question to me earlier in the show, which was, how important is this 6-game stretch now? And am I going to feel any differently if they win the next 6 or win the next 5? Really, show us something here against the Braves and Dodgers? And my answer is no. I mean, there's still going to be injuries. There's still going to be starting, pitching question marks for me. There's still going to be inconsistencies. For you, when you look at this team and this stretch that they have ahead, what are you looking to see, and how do you rank the quote-unquote importance of the next 6? The teams they're playing are good. They're just good, and they're better than the Phillies. So if they won 3 out of the 7 coming out of the break, I think they had 3 against the Nationals, 4 against the Dodgers, right, all at home. If they'd won 3 out of 7, that to me would have been success, and still could be. If they win this series, if they win the next 2 games, with their 1 and 2 pitchers, their number 1 and number 2 pitchers starting, and if they split against the Dodgers, that's a rousing success. Going 3 and 4 coming out of the break against 2 superior teams, even though they're at home. Especially when one of the games you're playing without arguably your best all-around player in the catcher JT Realmuto. So no, this isn't make or break. They didn't need to go 5 and 2. If they can't go 0 and 7, if they go 0 and 7, Gabe Kapler might get fired. But the reality of this team is they have 2 players. Their 2 best hitters right now, I would argue, are Kingery and Scott Kingery and Rhys Hoskins. Each of them in their second full season in the major leagues.
Right.
What do you want? What do you want from this team if those are their 2 best hitters right now? And you could say Gene Segura, maybe he gets back to 300 and he's one of their better hitters. But I would rather have either of those 2 at the plate than Gene Segura really at any juncture. So, and that's not to diminish what Harper is and what Harper can be and the effect he has on the lineup just by being there. But, let's be realistic. Bryce Harper is not worth $330 right now. He's just not. You can talk about his RBI. It's funny. The analytics people who want to defend Bryce Harper bring up run production and RBIs an awful lot when they want to defend him, but they diminish RBIs really the rest of the time, So, and Bryce Harper in his position, he's going to be hitting a lot with no runners on base. He's going to be hitting a lot with runners not in scoring position if he's hitting, 2 or 3. So he's got to be able to produce. I think he's at like 159 or 169 or something like that. That's not good enough. Not at 330.
Marcus Hayes with us here on 97.3 ESPN. Marcus, I did read that column about a month ago. The word I remember out of it was relevance, and you said that's what was realistic. People were hoping for such huge things out of the Phillies, and in your column, what you wrote was that they're relevant. Are they relevant, though? I mean, it was a fireworks night last night. You can't take last night's attendance. I mean, will they be able to carry the interest and be relevant through September?
Well, they're still a playoff team, right? They're still, in the hunt
that
for
was
the
their
wild
spin
card.
yesterday. Yeah, I saw that.
I mean, it's real. It's true. I mean, if they were in the Central right now, they'd be in the hunt for the, for the National League Central title. They'd be in the hunt for the lead. So they're certainly relevant. They're not a bad team. They're not a juggernaut, and they're not as good as the Braves or the Nationals. And anybody who thought they were going to be better than the Braves or the Nationals was really kind of fooling themselves, I thought, at the beginning of the season. I was astounded that they were what they were at the beginning of the season, quite frankly. I was astounded that Pivetta was effective as he was. I was astounded that Eflin was as effective as he was. And I was astounded that they were winning despite Nola not being very effective, though they were scoring a lot of runs for him. A lot of things broke for them correctly for them to be relevant and, in first place early in the season. I didn't think it was sustainable, but, I think what they are now also is kind of not exactly what they are. I don't think they're this bad. I think they're just playing really good teams, and they're sort of finding themselves.
They lost, or it looks like Jake Arrieta. They're not going to have 100% of Jake Arrieta. How much does that concern you, Marcus Hayes? Because obviously something was wrong with Jake Arrieta. I had Tommy Green on the show this morning on my morning show from 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock on 97.3 ESPN, and I asked him about that whole episode where, Todd Frazier was mouthing off at Arrieta, and then Arrieta gets fined. You're not going to hit a guy with a breaking ball, Marcus. If you're going to drill a guy, you're going to do it with a fastball. So I thought that was a little ridiculous. But to you, how much of a problem is it going to be with Jake Arrieta now they're number 2 trying to tough it out through bone spur issues?
I've never been a fan of the Jake Arrieta signing, not because I'm anti-Arrieta, just because when they signed him, it was more of a cosmetic signing than a roster-building signing. Jake Arrieta has pitched a little bit worse than I expected him to pitch, and, he claims that the second half of last season was affected by a knee tendonitis issue, and apparently he has a bone spur now. Well, Jake Arrieta is an old pitcher. This is one of the reasons you don't give, 33-year-old, 32-year-old pitchers who seem to be on the decline with diminishing velocity, $75 million contracts. It's, these are the issues. These are the problems. They break down. They wear out. They're older. And when they made the signing last year, I was there for that press conference. It was, a lot of hoopla, a lot of look at us. But it wasn't a lot of we have an ace that you could swallow. They if you remember that press conference with all the other Phillies players in the press conference room at spring training, and the owner and Scott Boras and all, they touted Jake Arrieta as the second coming of Roy Halladay. And that was just ridiculous. It was just spin. It was just PR. So what Jake Arrieta is a back of the rotation pitcher, but he was that when they signed him to this contract. Again, just because the Phillies and Phillies fans want something to be true doesn't necessarily make it true.
That's the quote of the decade right there, Marcus. So I want to ask you one more here about your thoughts on this team. Really, let's look into the future a little bit, like next year, let's say the 5-year plan. Andy McPhail yesterday comes out and says, we're not going to blow up the farm for a trade just yet. If we win 7 in a row on this homestand, maybe I'll feel differently. But given our current circumstances, I'm going to be careful about what talent is walking in and out the door. That's paraphrasing what McPhail had to say. But my question is, all right, fair. I can get on board with that. You don't have to hit the quote-unquote panic button and mortgage the farm for an aging pitcher with a ridiculous contract. But what's the plan then? Okay, fine. Don't do that. Don't make a trade. I get it. What's the plan for the offseason? What's the plan for the following year? Because, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, what they have right now ain't really going to cut it down the road.
Well, it depends on what comes free, and who wants to trade what in their own, in their own sort of evaluation. I think that they really, I believe, and I know this to be true. They banked that Pivetta, Eflin, and either Eichhoff or Velasquez were going to be middle of the rotation to front of the rotation pitchers. I don't think they have a plan beyond that at this point, and I don't know that they can. But that's the entire plan for the entire season. When they didn't sign Dallas Keuchel in the offseason, they didn't sign him because they didn't think that he was better than them. They might not be wrong about that, but you can't ask them what the overall plan is until there is a market to assess when the season's over. And I'm not sure that there's going to be much of a market in 2 weeks for them to make any relevant changes. I believe one of the key quotes from Andy McPhail was, we're not 1 or 2 players away from, going to the playoffs and making noise. That's relevant. They think that there are big issues, and he didn't say 1 or 2 pitchers. He said 1 or 2 players. So what does that mean? Who's your third baseman? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Who's your? For my money, Kingery's the best second baseman, the best option at second base. I'd rather see him play. I'd rather have them lose 5 extra games this year and him play second base every day as the second baseman going forward, and put Adam Hazley in center field. I believe they recalled Adam Hazley just a few hours ago, and I would be delighted if he's got Kingery play second base for the rest of the season and move him out of center field. Not that he's a bad center fielder, but I think he's a transformative second baseman.
Marcus Hayes with us, columnist from the Inquirer, Ink-Stained Wretch is the Twitter handle. One more baseball question for you, Marcus, and I asked this of Tommy Green this morning. This is a fun back of the press box or media dining room question. This whole thing about, did you see what they did in the Atlantic League on Wednesday night where they used a computer to call balls and strikes during that Atlantic League All-Star game in York, Pennsylvania? Now, there was an umpire back there, but he had an earpiece to the other guy who was saying, strike, ball, strike. What is your take? Are we going to see computers eventually call in the strike zone and no more Cowboy Joe West?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Bob Brookover, my colleague at the Inquirer, wrote a column about that and talked to Joe West. And Joe West said that, most umpires grade out over 95% correct, and I think he cited his own grading as 97 or something like that. I'm anti-replay and everything. I think it clogs up the game. I think it takes a measure of romance away from it. But on the flip side, if you're in for a penny, you're in for a pound. If you have replay in any sport for any call, you should have replay in that sport for every call. So I don't know where we're trending. I don't believe that you're going to see computers call balls and strikes from now on. But if they introduce it, then let's just go for it, I mean, the replay exists already. If they're going to continue to have replay, I don't have a problem with them calling balls and strikes because, as we all know, that's probably the hardest thing to get right. It astounds me how many calls are reversed already, how many calls that, with my naked eye, I'm wrong about. So if it replays in, put it all in.
Yeah, and that grading, I did read that piece from Bob Brookover, did a great job. It was like 95%, or the average is at 97. Hey, 95 is great. 100 is better, You may find this interesting, Marcus. I had Tommy Green on this morning, and his take, because I put up a Twitter question and named a couple umpires in that Twitter question and basically said, would you rather have computers or would you prefer it to still be Cowboy Joe West or Angel Hernandez or C.B. Buckner? And Tommy was funny because he said, look, Angel was one of those umpires, like he could never get a break from Angel Hernandez. He hated when he saw that Angel Hernandez was behind the dish. And he said, but that said, I still wanted him back there. And I was talking to Ryan, too. If you bring computers in, Marcus, the whole art of framing a pitch, like where a catcher frames a pitch to get a call or to get a strike in a key situation, all that goes away.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, but, what's art? If umpiring is art. Umpiring isn't necessarily a trade. It's an art. It's it is what it is. I mean, if you want everything to be mechanized, you can mechanize everything. They have a 3D box that if the ball crosses that 3D box, okay, it's a strike. That's fine by me. I don't really feel strongly one way or another, but I don't like dithering. If you're going to do it, go ahead and do it.
Marcus, sticking on the fun, controversial topics here of Major League Baseball, one Justin Verlander, last week came out and said these baseballs are juiced. And PT and I talked a little bit about it before you jumped on with us too. And Justin Verlander is a pretty credible source for me. And more. You've been around locker rooms, and maybe that's not true, but the guy's a starting pitcher for the All-Star game. He's a Cy Young winner. He's a Hall of Famer. He's been holding a baseball in his hand for his entire life. I'm sure he knows when something's up. Home runs are at an all-time high. What's your take on just that story and just the state of baseball in general, with Pete asking you about computers calling strikes, me asking you about baseballs being juiced, people complaining that the sport's dying? Where does all this fit in the big picture?
Well, the All-Star Game ratings were the worst since the All-Star Game viewership and ratings were the worst since they started keeping viewership and ratings numbers. the U.S. women's national team, I think, outdrew them 2 or 3 to 1 in the U.S. Women's World Cup. So that's where baseball is. If everything is about hitting home runs or striking out, it becomes a long, boring game, and it's an unpopular game because there's very little action. But if it's going to be shifts, home runs, and strikeouts, it's going to be an unpopular game, and it's going to be it's going to continue to be the third sport among the 3 sports, and maybe the fourth if soccer keeps charging. So that's what I think. When they became analytics centric, and I believe it was 2000, 2001, 2002 in Oakland and Boston. When that happened, my contention was when you take away bunts, steals, when you diminish, the importance of things like runs batted in and moving runners and things like that, the game becomes less of a game and more of an exhibition. So if that's what you think the public wants, I disagree. But if that's what you think the public wants, fine. But you can legislate that stuff back in. You just take away the shift. Just take it away, and baseball becomes a lot more appealing. I'm not advocating for that. I don't really care where the game goes. It's really not my job. But baseball is an ugly game when it's all strikeouts and home runs. And do I think the ball is juiced? Yeah, the ball is juiced. They bought Rawlings. Major League Baseball bought the company.
Right.
Major League Baseball is convinced that home runs is what sell tickets, and that's why people watch or stream or attend. So they're going to make it easier to hit home runs and make it harder to make the baseball move. Movement is everything if you're a pitcher, and that's Verlander's point. Verlander's point isn't that it's harder and slicker, as much as it is the seams are tighter and it's harder to make the ball move.
Marcus Hayes with us. Hey, before we let you go, I will say your one recent column, you said how and maybe why the U.S. women's national team made millions of fans, including this guy. I'm with you, Marcus. I'm not saying that I watched their 13-0 blowout rout, but by the time they started to pick up steam, I was like, you know what, I'm going to check this out a little bit. And I definitely watched all of U.S. and England. And if you weren't a soccer fan and you watched U.S.-England, you were after that because that had everything in it. And then the finals against Netherlands, I was a big fan of those two things. And even Mike Gill kept saying, like, wow, PT, you're into this. And so were you, Marcus.
Well, yeah, the game, the more than anything for me, the level of play has increased appreciably since, I started paying attention in 1999. They're better players. There are better players all over the world, and the U.S. women's national team is, it's the best team the best team there ever has been. So it's just more fun to watch. It's more fun to watch than, like women's Olympic basketball or WNBA. I believe that the game is more, to me, more aesthetically pleasing. And I played soccer. I've watched a lot of soccer. I watched a lot of international soccer, and I have since I was probably 10 or 12 years old. It's pleasant to watch now. It's fun to appreciate. The women all around the globe, and especially in the United States, have advanced the game, have raised the level of the game to the point where it's like tennis for me now, or women's golf. It's fun to watch because they've gotten a lot better, and to me, they've gotten better enough. They've improved enough that the level of play has improved to the degree that it does hold my interest, and I look forward to it.
Just like you're pleasant to listen to and a staple of our Ryan and PT shows. Marcus Hayes, the columnist from the Inquirer. Follow his work at Inquirer.com or find him on Twitter, InkStainedRetch. Marcus, we always love having you on, pal. I guess we didn't really cover any Sports Illustrated swimsuit models. If you just want to throw out like Polina Porzakova or something like that, just some random name while you're signing off, go ahead.
Mic drop it.
Yeah, I'm in enough hot water already.
Elle McPherson says hello. All right, Marcus, we'll talk to you again soon, my friend. Appreciate it.
All right, fellas. Take care.
All right, take care.
Man.
Marcus Hayes, yeah, man, he's the best.